Hey everybody, Anthony K here with the Sports Fluent podcast, and I'm joined today by my special guest from the University of Nebraska, strength and conditioning coach, Stuart Hart. Stuart, how you doing, man?
I'm pretty good, brother. How you doing?
I'm doing well. I should say longtime friends, so we've known each other a long time. So in case we do any inside jokes, that's why.
Where it came from.
I want to jump right into the NCAA,
Okay.
and so football obviously is something that they're deciding whether they're going to be playing. So I want to get your take on, do you think that do you think basketball is going to be kicking off? How is it being affected by what the football decisions are? So
Yeah.
let's start there.
So I guess I should start off by saying I'm a strength and conditioning coach for basketball here in
Yes.
Nebraska. So, originally from Toronto, moved down here for a basketball scholarship, and I've been living in the States ever since. So now I'm employed at the University of Nebraska as a strength and conditioning coach. And obviously with everything going on as far as COVID, football is kind of leading the way, being the dominant fall sport. And a couple conferences, Big Ten, they've made the decision that they're not going to have sports. So basketball is considered a winter sport. So we're still kind of waiting to see where the NCAA is going to come down, and then how they're going to impact or influence what the individual conferences decide to do. But
Do they have a timeline on what they're going to do for their winter sports yet?
They haven't. And I guess the best answer I can give you in regards to that was, football basically starts right at the beginning of the school year. And, a week or two prior to the start of the school year, they made the decision to not have sports. So, the way, if we're using that as a precedent, they might not tell us until maybe a week or two before the season's supposed to start.
So is Nebraska football then they're not playing?
Yeah, the Big Ten conference has decided they're not going to play. And I think SEC is obviously trying to have a season, and I believe the ACC as well.
So there was talk about, though, having spring, like moving the fall sports to the spring.
Yeah.
Is that still kind of just an open discussion?
Open discussion. And it's pretty much a fluid situation. It's every day you're waiting for some sort of new insight in regards to it. If you go back to when COVID originally hit and they shut down the NCAA tournament, so both on the men's side and the women's side, since March and up until basically August, they've been trying to figure out, okay, how bad is the COVID situation? How is each individual school handling it? Obviously, with the Big Ten footprint, we've got multiple states involved. So, it's very much dependent on the state that you're in. It's very much dependent on what your governor of that particular state, the politics, if you will, how they're influencing with the universities, because a lot of the universities are state institutions. So they've got to abide by both state and local mandates. So, it's pretty much just waiting to see what each individual state and or school in those particular states are dealing with, and then what the NCAA, what decision the NCAA makes based on that.
So what's your take on it? So if they were your kids, right, student, I know this is the thing with NCAA, right? They're student athletes. So some students aren't going back. Should the athletes?
Yeah. My personal take is, if, putting the student first, you got to put the well-being of the student first, student athlete first.
Right.
And if it's not safe for, students to be on campus or student athletes to participate in activities, if you can't provide a safe environment for them to be able to participate, then it doesn't make any sense for you to, have any sort of organized sports. Now, there's the medical and or personal feeling behind that, but then there's also the economics of college sports. Football is a major economic driver for a lot of the Power 5 schools. It pretty much funds most of the athletic department, and it funds most of sometimes even the institution itself. So they're obviously taking a hit by not having sports. So you get that side of it.
Right. And that's really the big question, right? Is you're trying to balance, as any student athlete is, school life and the sport that you're playing or giving you the scholarship and the opportunity to go to that school. Yeah. And the school's trying to balance, in a lot of cases where the football and basketball is really funding some of the other sports and some of the other, like you said, the school in general. Sure. So how do you, there's a thin line there that you don't want to cross. How do you do that? So from your standpoint,
right answer to that is, in regards to how you do that, you manage the information and you make your decision based on the best information you have available to you. And that's where I think the professional leagues, if we're using the models that they're using, obviously being a professional league, they've got probably a couple more resources than we do at the collegiate level, and not every institution is in the same financial situation. And I think that plays a lot into the decision-making of the presidents and the ADs that are involved. It's like, okay, I want to be able to provide maybe a bubble situation, but can I really afford to do that the way that it really needs to be done the correct way? And maybe I'll just use the Big Ten. Maybe one institution can do it, but 3 others in the same conference can't do it. So how viable is it for you to actually have a season or, in whatever sport, whether it's basketball or football, if, 3 out of your 14 schools in your conference can't provide the same experience?
Right. And so even if some do come back, so obviously there's some that have decided they are going to come back and play. They're just coming back to play really for, can there be a national champion at the end of all this if only half of the teams, if 25% of the teams play? There's we talked about some schools that are going to do spring. Are they just playing games to play games to say, hey, that's what they're here to do as part of their kind of scholarship? Because you can't have a national champion if not everyone's in it, right?
Yeah, especially if you have one conference that's having their season or some form of their season in the fall, and then another group is having, their season in the spring. And I think that's where the logistics of everything, whether it's on the individual conference level or the national level when you're dealing with the actual NCAA, how they're going to actually make it work and facilitate a national championship, obviously that's way above my pay grade, and I'm sitting back just like everybody else trying to figure out how it's going to happen. I'd love to see a national championship. I think everybody would, but again, you have to put the well-being of the student athlete and support staff and coaches first.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's one thing that, not that it doesn't affect younger people, because COVID does, but obviously it has a worse effect on the coaches. The coaches in some cases or in all cases are the oldest guys and girls in the building. They're the ones that actually are going to be affected by this most, and we got to think of their safety too. Sure. So you mentioned kind of a bubble situation. So obviously I think the NBA and the NHL have had a lot of success with their bubble.
Right.
Major League Baseball, not so much.
Not so much.
So is there a scenario, like, are you guys looking at the pro sports and saying, hey, how can we make this work? Because in college sports, you can't really say, hey, let's all go to this one school and sit around for 2 months and have a season, right? That's not realistic.
Yeah.
So what are you learning from the pro sports?
Everything right now is on the table. I've heard bubble situation. We all meet. We only do it for conference. We all meet in one central location, and we, facilitate a conference game situation where, obviously you got your athletes, they got to take classes, but everything's online right now. So that's one location. I've heard regional locations. Everybody meets at that one location. You play 3 to 4 games, whatever it is. You go back home and then you meet at another location and you try. This is just to get through the conference.
Right.
And then the bubble situation where, you basically bubble everybody at home, whether it's you find a local hotel, you put everybody in that one location and you try to make it as safe an environment for everybody else. Again, everything is on the table right now. A lot of it is being dictated by, again, the individual states, the schools, what resources they have, what can everybody do that we can have some sort of uniform expectation and or experience.
And buy-in.
Right?
Because with professional athletes, I don't want to say it's easier, but hey, we're paying you millions of dollars. This is what we need. Right. For a student, right, you're getting a scholarship, but you're 18, 19, 20 years old.
22.
You're telling me stay in?
Yeah.
I don't have a problem staying in. Like, my intentions are good, but it'd be kind of tough.
Yeah, that's what we saw in the media with the UNC and a couple of these schools.
Right.
That, the initial wave of campus college athletes or college students come back on campus and somebody's throwing a party and you got, 100 to 150 people in an apartment. Nobody's wearing masks, but they're being college students. You know what I mean? They're doing exactly what they would do.
Yeah, exactly.
Between the ages of 18 and 22. Is it the right thing for them to do? No, but at that age, you're not necessarily thinking about the long-term or even the short-term repercussions.
Think about today. Exactly. For sure.
Which is where the bubble, you have some more control. But again, you're still expecting them to be mature and make the right decisions. But as much control as you can have as a coaching staff, as an athletic department, because you're, again, responsible for what these athletes have to go through. Those are the things that we're trying to figure out.
Yeah, you never know who's going to make a run to Magic City for some wings, right?
I'm hoping they don't, but yeah.
I hear they're good. So I need to try sometime. But all right, so let's kind of shift a little bit to the NBA. So basketball coach, you played basketball. Is there any rooting interest in any teams in the
Obviously
NBA?
from Toronto, I'm still, got my Raptors in there.
Okay.
Clippers, I love Kawhi Leonard. Loving what Dame is doing with Portland.
Yeah.
But as far as do I have obviously everybody's rooting for LeBron. I'm not necessarily the biggest LeBron fan or Laker fan. I'm more of a LeBron fan than a Laker fan, so I'd like to see him be successful. But I'll say if you actually had to hold me down and pick one, I'd probably go with Toronto.
You think Toronto gets the repeat?
Yeah.
Kyle Lowry got hurt yesterday.
I did see that. See that.
So as long as he's healthy, I think they'll be all right. It doesn't hurt when you get 100 points off the bench. It's hard to lose.
Right. That's what I'm saying. They got a strong bench, and that's what you got a bench for. So I still think they got a pretty good shot, though.
So something else happened in the NBA, and I wanted to talk to you about it because when the stuff happened with George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and the protests started, and you and I had a conversation about that, and it brought up some bigger issues and things that everybody needed to talk about race. And that's important.
Yeah.
And then in the NBA, now since then, I will say this, Montrezl Harrell, I can't quote him directly. However, I believe he rebounded, went up and scored against Luka Doncic. And as he was running back, I believe, if you believe the lip readers, they say he said, "B-ass white boy."
Okay.
And there's a lot of people that came out and said, hey, if the tables were turned and it was reversed and it was Luka saying that to him, right? Whole different conversation.
Yeah, every morning Tuesday would be
right. Now, since then, Montrez did go up to Luka before the game, I believe yesterday, and apologized and said, hey, it was the heat of the moment.
Right.
So the reason I wanted to talk to you about it is obviously we had that discussion on race. You and I played basketball together. I was bringing up before we started recording about when we were in Hawaii, we went out like Woody and Wesley looking for games with people. We talked a lot of trash as we were playing.
Right.
So is that just heat of the moment? It's trash talk. We need to be less sensitive, or is there more to it that, hey, now we got to be careful what we say? Because the two biggest ones I see, trash talk on the court, because I love trash talking. Even my men's league, they tell me I never shut up.
Mm-hmm.
And comedy. Those are the two things that used to be, hey, you just let them, it's the heat of the moment and it's comedy, let it go. We've become more sensitive to that. So is it, hey, that was heat of the moment, let it go? Or is it something that athletes, especially student athletes too, right? Is it something they need to pay closer attention to, like what you say in the heat of the moment and that trash talk? Does that need to change?
I would say on the college level, I find that your officials are paying closer attention to that sort of behavior. Men's game, women's game is kind of the same. Any sort of trash talking, any sort of gesture towards the opponent after a basket in the heat of the moment of a game, like they try to correct that as best they can. At the pro level, you find there's a little bit more latitude there, and maybe the officials, with everything that they have to do, they're not necessarily paying attention to that. So you get a little bit more. Now, within the context of where we're at right now, race relations, treatment of African Americans by police officers, language that may potentially be used that is inflammatory. I feel like you have to be a little bit more conscious and or cognizant of what your behaviors are and what you get caught saying, especially on national TV, especially at that level as a pro. Now, that being said, trash talking is still part of the game, but roles reversed. If the N word was then thrown, it's a heated debate. It's a heated discussion. It's a long tweet. Accepting responsibility and some sort of, okay, I'm going to try to do better. So I just think just the nature of the way things are and the direction that we're trying to move and or change the direction of the country, I just feel like you have to be a little bit more conscious of what you say, how you say it, whether it's the heat of the moment or not.
There was, and I apologize, I should have been ready for this. There was a WNBA game, right, where one of the players looked at the other, kind of said, okay, I'll see you in the lobby later. Right. No one talked about that much, but that's something that we do, right? That's something that we say. It's again, it's in the heat of the moment. The amount of times that actually happens, where you meet in the lobby later, I think is few and far between. But
it does happen.
Yeah, for sure, it does. So the last thing I want to talk to you about, because today when we're recording this is, I guess, officially, at least in California or LA, is Kobe Bryant Day.
Yeah.
You and I grew up watching Kobe. Any kind of memories, thoughts on Kobe? Like, obviously he kicked off this 2020, right? We knew it was going to be bad when that happened, and it's just, I think, gotten worse ever since.
Downhill ever since.
Yeah.
Thoughts on Kobe are, put him up there amongst the greatest in the game. You say we grew up watching Kobe. Obviously, prior to him, it was Michael Jordan. And the thing about Kobe, he's the greatest thing since Michael Jordan that has come the closest to emulating what Jordan did on the court. And for that, you have to give him the kudos and respect. But I think he created his own lane also, just in regards to the Mamba mentality and his relationship with, especially being a strength coach on the women's side here, his relationship with, because of his daughter at WNBA and women's basketball and what he's done to champion that. You just got to remember the man. He was an excellent dude. Obviously he made his mistakes, as we all do. Yeah. But the legacy that he's leaving behind and the things that he was able to accomplish in the league and the lives that he was able to impact, you have to remember him. And if the birthday is when I'd much rather remember the birthday than remember the death. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so, fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we have the birthday. It's probably fitting, right? The birthday is 8/23 and then the Kobe day is 8/24. So we get to, this week we're doing a lot of Kobe week stuff, right? And talking about that Mamba mentality and how to do better, be better. And that was kind of his whole mantra. And it relates to not just basketball, but life in general, where we need to do better. So speaking of doing better, I'm seeing you in the gym a lot, seeing you with your team in the gym a lot, Strength by Heart. Tell me about what you guys are doing, how you're preparing for hopefully this season when it comes up. And
the best answer to that question is we're doing what we're supposed to do, and we've been blessed in being able to do what we would typically do, obviously with some changes because of COVID, but just within the footprint of the Big Ten. Not every school, depending on whatever state you were in, was able to bring their athletes back. Our athletes went home basically about the middle of March, and then we were able, through not just on the institutional level, but from the NCAA, they were allowed to come back and go through voluntary workouts. So I have my athletes back here about June 1st. And we roughly had about 6 weeks of training, which is what we would typically have in summer anyway. But just because of Nebraska, the limited number of cases, comparably speaking to other places in the country, we felt comfortable, and our administration felt comfortable in bringing our athletes back, and the NCAA allowed it and the Big Ten allowed it. Great summer, man. It's been nice to have my team back. We've got, 7 new players on the roster. We've got a couple of international kids from Australia, and just dealing with that, and them having to.
So they had to kind of quarantine or come over, quarantine, and then oh wow.
Yeah. So, and then even some of the protocols that we put in place, even our athletes that were out of state. It really didn't depend. It didn't really matter what state they were coming from. They still had to go through a quarantine situation when they stepped back on campus. So we were very careful, mindful, wearing the masks, trying to make sure everybody's washing hands before, wiping down equipment in between sets, reps, and that sort of thing. We had a successful summer.
Oh, that's good. So Nebraska obviously then didn't get hit as hard.
Yeah. We had cases. Don't ask me the number. I just know comparative speaking to the other schools within the footprint of the Big Ten, we had a limited number of cases. So.
Okay. Well, that's good. I'm glad you're keeping safe and doing well. Yeah. It was nice catching up with you, man. I hope we'll talk again soon.
For sure. Let's do it again.
All right, man.